Hello guys, today I thought I would like to make a video on Joseph Stalin. The reason why is because I encountered this article from International Business Times written by Palash Ghosh, I believe that's how it's pronounced. So the way I'm going to start is by saying that this article is a piece of shit. I am going to explain why I have those views, or that view in particular. And I'll start by narrating it. But before I narrate, I am going to delete this because this is really annoying. Oh. I always pause it, and even if I pause it, it still plays. So let's start. Joseph Stalin, who died 60 years ago in Moscow, was a small man, no more than 5'4". 5'4". You never really did learn English, did you? You mean feet. 5 feet tall. Well, 5'4". Because this is only to be used if the number is 1. That's like saying there's 60 people over there. You mean to say there are 60 people over there? No more than 5'4". So obviously this guy's a moron. Oh, I'll stop with my, grammar naughty things. Or my correction of grammar. And continue with the narration. The abused son of a poor alcoholic Georgian cobbler, Joseph... I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. The future Stalin also had a withered arm, a clubbed foot, and a face scarred by smallpox. But he stood very tall as one of history's most prolific killers. Stalin's extremely brutal 30-year rule as absolute ruler of the Soviet Union featured so many atrocities, including purges, expulsions, forced displacements, imprisonment in labor camps, manufactured famines, torture, and good old-fashioned acts of mass murder and massacres, not to mention World War II, that the complete toll of bloodshed will likely never be known. An immoral psychopath and paranoid with a gangster's mentality, Stalin eliminated anyone and everyone who was a threat to his power, including and especially former allies. He had absolutely no regard for the sanctity of human life. But how many people is he responsible for killing? In February 1989, 2 years before the fall of the Soviet Union, a research paper by Georgian historian Roy, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, published in the weekly tabloid Argumenti I Fakti, estimated the death toll, directly attributable to Stalin's rule, amounted to some 20 million lives on top of the estimated 20 million Soviet troops and civilians who perished in the Second World War, for a total tally of 40 million. You are blaming 20 million deaths that were not caused by him. So, 20 million men go to war, and supposedly Stalin killed them all. How ridiculous. By that logic, I can say that Winston Churchill was an evil man who killed 383,000 soldiers and 450,000 civilians and soldiers. And I can say FDR and Truman killed 416,000 American soldiers and 418,500, soldiers and civilians. And then I can say that the ruler of Canada was responsible for 45,000. What? What? Oh, and I can say that the French ruler, Mr. de Gaulle, was responsible for 217,000 casualties. Don't you see the hypocrisy behind all of this? Oh, wow. This is so stupid. They say Stalin killed all those men without saying that FDR, Truman, and then all the other guys were also responsible. They were, by that logic. But obviously, they are hypocritical. They are hypocrites, and they like to warp the truth because it's propaganda. It's all biased information. So, of course, here's a picture of, people who were responsible for lots of deaths. By that logic, I could, cut this in half, make half a blood drop, and put FDR here as the 11th worst man, by their logic. So what else can I say? Well, So now we know about this. What about the Holodomor? Well, here's an interesting read. Joseph Stalin, the leader of Russia, ordered operatives to remove all the stores of food from farming towns. In the Ukraine, millions of people had no bread. They ate field mice, insects, husks, and dead children. It was 1933. A Russian-born American couple visited a Ukrainian village. We are all dying of starvation, a villager told them. They want us to die. It is an organized famine. There has never been a better harvest. But if we are caught cutting a few ears of corn, we would be shot or put in prison and starve to death. It was August 1933. So, with that being said, you would kind of think, oh, well, Stalin was terrible, only that right there. This is actually fallacious. What are some of the headlights behind all of this? First of all, Joseph Stalin didn't order any of that. And then, of course, he would say, you are lying. Surely you are lying. Well, guess what? It was actually a bad harvest. Think about it. In the past, there have been famines. And what was the main cause behind many of them? Oh, I don't know. Bad crops. The Irish were starving back in the 1800s whenever their potatoes failed. I'm pretty sure that the ruler of Ireland wasn't blamed for it. No, it's because crops occasionally fail. And especially back then, when vast stores of food were non-existent, bad crops meant the majority of the people would not have access to food. And this still applied to the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, or whatever Ukraine was called whenever it was part of the USSR. Oh, and what about this? As for the other aspect of this claim, we have unidentified witnesses talking to an unidentified peasant in an unidentified village somewhere in Ukraine. Let's see. The anonymous quote is simply laughable. Note that the peasant, supposedly living in this terror-stricken, brainwashed, propaganda-laden society, tells us the unidentified couple precisely what the author wants us to know. So, by giving us unidentified sources, they can essentially tell us whatever the fuck, fits them, whatever fits their agenda. So, of course, I'm going to scroll up and scroll down, so you can pause the video, read this. So, of course, what about the collectivization? Now, let's see. They wanted to collectivize the farms to produce more food to feed the workers in industry. He wanted to produce a surplus so he could sell the food overseas to bring more money into the country, and then use that money to purchase, machines and stuff like tractors for the farms to make the farms even better. And he needed people to leave the land to go work in the industry to become an industrial power. And he wanted an excuse to destroy the kulaks, who believed in private ownership and not communism. And obviously that's bad, because if you're trying to set up a government that follows communism, you obviously don't want private ownership, because that's against communism. So yes, but here's the thing though. The peasants hated the idea, so they burned their crops and killed their animals rather than hand them over to the state. There was another famine in 1930. So the peasants killed their animals, burned their crops, and somehow Stalin was to blame. Oh, wow. This is beyond belief. This is so ridiculous. So, of course, here's a picture that demonstrates exactly what Stalin wanted to do. Joseph Stalin's 5-year plans were aimed at making the USSR an industrial superpower. And as Joseph Stalin said, we are 50 or 100 years behind the advanced countries. We must make up this gap in 10 years. Either we do it, or they will crush us. And then, of course, in this article, they stated that, where is it? He's paranoid with a gangster's mentality, yet he made so many brilliant quotes. Truly a gangster. So, I will make a part 2 to describe what would happen if he did not exist. Farewell.